We've seen shocking anti-Semitism in universities globally. As we keep speaking about on the show, part of the reason we're seeing this explosion of hatred towards Jews is because of a weakness of political leadership, a lack of courage. They put politics ahead of moral conviction. And so it is not just with political leaders, but the leaders at universities as well. Presidents of Ivy League colleges don't even have the mettle to call out anti-Semitism. Their shocking responses are a clear reflection of just how much racism against Jewish people is now accepted in society. Have a look at this next clip. These people, I'm saying they are appalling people. The presidents of Harvard University, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the University of Pennsylvania. This video is them testifying in Capitol Hill in front of New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik.
At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman. If it if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals.
Anti-Semitic rhetoric.
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Now, imagine if you replace the question they were asked with trans, gay, or Indigenous people. Does the genocide of trans, gay, or Indigenous people violate your university's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying or harassment? I mean, people can get cancelled or fired for misgendering someone, but not for calling for the genocide of Jews. I despair. Well, one brave student at the University of Pennsylvania is Eyal Yacobi. He's been standing up against this racism, and he joins me now. Thank you so much for your time. Look, firstly, what are you seeing at the University of Pennsylvania?
Thank you so much for having me on. I am very appreciative that Sky News played the clip of President McGill having no response other than it depends on context when asked about whether or not calling for the genocide of Jews violates the code of conduct for students. So I'd like to actually provide that very context that she's looking for. In the past 2 months at Penn, there's been a swastika drawn on campus. There have been bomb threats made against Hillel. A Jewish student was accosted. Jews are Nazis was etched next to the Jewish fraternity house at Penn. A Jewish student was accosted. That is the context. And if that context is not enough for my president to immediately say, no, that is not okay, and yes, it violates our code of conduct, then I don't know what is at this point. Because it seems like there has been a ton of actions and context provided to her.
Look, we just saw the vision of the protest that took place at your university where your fellow students, young people, are calling for an intifada. You know, how how pervasive is this sentiment among your fellow students?
Not just students. Professors are leading these chants. It is definitely not just students. And I would like to provide a little bit more than just intifada being directed towards Jews specifically. What these calls are is global intifada. It is not against just Jews. In intifada, there were 2 of them in Israel, which resulted in the mass deaths of Jews and non-Jews. They indiscriminately bombed buses and stabbed people. This has nothing to do with Jews. It has to do with the targeting of innocent civilians. And if people understood what global intifada means, it would stretch far beyond just the Jewish community being scared.
Absolutely. Eyal Yacobi, thank you so much for speaking out, for your strength, for your very articulate, clear words there, and stay strong on campus. Thank you.
Thank you.